If we're talking sheer numbers, 2023 was stuffed with more BL ships than I had time to watch. So I went into 2024 with all the optimism my Fujo heart could muster. And I gotta tell you, it didn't disappoint. These romance run the gamut from tender to toxic and everything in between. I'm Green Tea Gal, and here are the best and most surprising ships of 2024. Usato and Kazuki. The wrong way to use healing magic. MC Usato and Kazuki are part of what I like to call the Friends in 60 Seconds Club. Their chemistry is so immediate, Token Waifu has to put herself between them just to not be ignored and left behind. This walking home in the rain scene matters more than you might have realized. For one, the Japanese symbol for lovers is actually the umbrella. Back during feudal days and the Meiji Restoration, a woman had to walk several paces behind the man even if they were married. But when it rained, they were allowed to walk together under the umbrella they shared. And from there, the symbol of lovers in Japan was born. It's a subtle trope that's right at home in BL. It may have flown right over your head before, but now you'll always know it's a wink and a nudge that these people are an item. So Usato and Kazuki having a rom-com level meet cute in their first scene together is something I can't ignore. Minutes later they get transported to another world, it's Tuesday after all, but Kazuki takes the news like an absolute Chad. He even stands up to the king, who actually bows to him for his efforts. This only improves Usato's high opinion of him, while the second Usato learns anything about the Token Waifu, it seems to ruin whatever good impression he had of her. On top of being on a first name basis within seconds, Usato and Kazuki quickly get physically affectionate too. If they're in a scene together, Kazuki will definitely find a way to make physical contact. They maximize their little screen time together with as much positivity, emotional support, and physical touch that they can jam into 30 seconds. If you can't tell from the title, Usato has healing magic, and he goes through hellish training to hone it. Other than realizing he's a bottom, bro is literally in this position once a day. His main motivation for getting his ass kicked is being able to help Kazuki and What's-Her-Face in battle someday. Usato gets super strong and optimistic about their future, but one prophetic vision later has him worried Kazuki's not long for this world. He worries so much about it that he loses sleep. Meanwhile, Kazuki's much more immediate fear of the demon army at their gate has him up late too, so he ran right to Usato, subconsciously thinking his was the shoulder worth crying on. Kazuki's right, of course, as Usato says exactly what he needs to hear to get the pep back in his step. The whole scene is so raw, pure, and vulnerable that Usato actually gets embarrassed.
Anyway, let's never tell anyone about this conversation. Scared of a little sincerity? Well, I'm genuinely glad I got to meet you. Deal with it.
My boys! I witnessed that beautiful display of bromance, and I'm keeping it in my heart till the day I die!
Hi, I'm in the photo and I don't like it. It's pretty clear that Inukami likes the MC, but he never returns her feelings. She goes full sex pest on the day of the battle. But Usato's not like other isekai protagonists. He's terrified of being manhandled by her. He screams for Kazuki to come save him, and he actually does.
Wait, he really came?
This isn't your route, Kazuki!
This was yet another example of Usato and Kazuki preferring each other's company and turning to each other in high-stress situations.
Usato, be good. Thanks, my dude. Oh, you won.
In the season finale, Usato uses his healing magic the wrongest way yet, and beats the demon knight that's been haunting his dreams and nearly took his BFF away from him. Don't worry, he got better. Afterwards, Usato finally gets some downtime and immediately goes to see his bestie.
Usato.
Love that the princess is talking, but Kazuki just stares at Usato the entire time. Nice of the show to throw us one more romantic bone to tide ourselves until season 2. Leon and Kaim. Most notorious talker. As the season finale, most notorious femboy shit talker Noel has to prove his and his clan's worth by defeating a super high level monster. But he has stiff competition in the prodigy Leon and his winged knights. Noel has a habit of stealing strong dudes away from their former masters, and he not so secretly wants Leon for himself, I mean his clan. And in an effort to steal him away, he talks shit until he eroded years of camaraderie and affection in less than a day. Noel's infamous for this sort of behavior, so Leon dips to go calm his nerves in a bar with his right-hand man and bestie Kaim. Kaim reassuring Leon that they'll come out of this on top like they always do despite Noel's sneaky bullshit. They have all the faith in the world in their skills and bromance. They even get flashbacks showing how they've been friends since childhood and plan their whole lives around each other to become adventurers and always be in the other's corner. The show goes out of its way to show how close they are, just so that it hits that much harder when they're ripped apart. Since the show isn't called the most notorious Wing Knights, things go pretty badly. And that boss Marston turns out to be way stronger than any of them thought. They're on death's door, so Leon tries to buy them time to escape. But Noel had already sown the seeds of doubt and suspicion earlier to get in their heads, because he's nice like that. So the simple act of Leon not wanting them to risk their lives needlessly, and suggesting working with Noel's team to survive, is seen as this big betrayal. Kaim is so mad Leon didn't trust his strength or his batch plan. They actually stabs him in the middle of their life or death exam. Bro, the fuck? Kaim took this misunderstanding like a jilted lover.
Instant regret after stabbing your boyfriend in the blind rage. Starter pack.
He thinks of Leon as his family, but he also envied him. There had been a lot of complicated feelings just under the surface that Noel's scheme revealed. Afterward, Noel and his clan swoop in and kill the beast, winning the competition. Even if they weren't forced to disband, the Winged Knights were finished as a team. Not surprisingly, Leon and Kaim take the breakup, disbanding the hardest. Leon wanders the streets in a haze, becoming an easy target for haters who literally kick him while he's down, while Kaim drowns himself in cheap booze, regretting his hot Latin temper and the ass-brain decisions that led him here. It's only as he's crying and drinking himself to death over Leon that the bartender slides him some water and advice. Go settle his unfinished business with Leon or he'll never be able to move on. Meanwhile, Noel swoops in to save Leon and snatch him up for himself like he planned to all along. With no one else and nowhere to go, Leon gets talked into joining Blue Beyond. And because he can't stop being a messy twunk if he tried, Kaim decides his best option is picking a very public fight, so he can throw hands at Bay one last time. This last punch helps quell the town gossip and allow them some weird sort of closure. They tearfully part ways and Leon has to force himself not to look back. I had no idea the show would be this dramatic about it, but I'm glad it put some real weight behind the never forget what they took from us gay subplot. Sato and Mars, Tale of Wedding Rings. This show is loosely built around the premise of Sato using a bond with a selection of waifus to keep the kingdom safe, so you have to realize how much Mars has to stand out in this ecchi-ass anime to make my list. In fact, they meet when the MC crashes Mars and Princess Crystal's wedding in episode 1, effectively stealing Mars's bride, the throne, and the Ring King powers in one fell swoop. But instead of being understandably livid, Mars proves just how much of an unbothered king he is by immediately throwing Sato a weapon, without which he wouldn't have survived the encounter, let alone protected all of them from harm. They get a more formal introduction in episode 2 after Mars again rushes to Sato's aid when he's pulled into a battle he wasn't prepared for, this time making the most extra flying tuxedo mask looking ass entrance ever, just to set the baddies on fire. Get you a man who can do both, I guess. He even had their Uber waiting for a quick getaway.
You can just call me Mars.
When things calm down, Sato and his accidental waifu Crystal learn that being Ring King means A, she'll have to share him, and B, that he's gonna get hurt all the time. The second Crystal is off screen, Sato runs into his new chilled bestie Mars.
Is everything alright?
This actually happens a lot. I swear it's like Mars just waits around to help Sato or give him emotional support. Mars is even the one who trains him in hand-to-hand combat the second they have some downtime.
Get a hit in.
This is the kind of ship that absolutely maximizes his limited screen time, so no matter how long or short the scene together, the vibes are immaculate. Sato's day or mood will always be better and his life a heck of a lot longer when Mars is present. The boys have some quality time in the bathhouse after a particularly tiring day of winning over a difficult princess, and as usual, Mars gently eases Sato's worries away. Apparently this scene wasn't nearly homoerotic enough, so when the attendant offers to scrub Sato's back, there's a funny little bait and switch, and a huge black cat man sidles up to scrub every inch of him just off screen. I just sort of expect harem anime to have either zero men or use any excuse to shove more tits in the viewer's face, but The Tale of Wedding Rings is quick to throw a beefy male side character and even give him dialogue or relevance to the plot. It's two handsome male elves that rescue them from the bear tornado incident, and not only are the wedding rings themselves male-coded, they're quite taken with Sato and his daily displays of bravery and valor.
You truly are an entertaining man.
The zestiness is always tempered with ass and titties, of course, but Sato's virgin shield is extra strong for an ecchi protagonist, so he'll repeatedly blow his chances to get laid, be terrified when he thinks he did get laid, or fall asleep before he can do any more than grab a titty. Even Grandpa's kind of fed up with him, which makes it even stranger how much of the plot insists Mars stick around, even in a scene where he has absolutely no dialogue and nothing to do but stand there and look pretty. Come to think of it, Grandpa could easily have filled Mars's emotional support training role. It would certainly have looked fatherly and platonic. But no, the show goes with the age-appropriate blonde hottie instead.
Hey, Mars!
As if to prove my point, episode 7 features another half-naked bro talk, while the obligatory pool episode happens elsewhere. Turns out Mars not becoming the Ring King comes back to bite him in the ass. We realize the country of Grisalia isn't nearly as benevolent as his put-upon prince. Even when he's upset and called a worthless failure to his face by his family, he still took the time to fluff Sato's confidence for the 10th time.
The Ring King should be a man like you.
Mars is already having a rough day, and it gets worse when an evil woman pulls up to give him an evil sword that immediately poisons his mind. Which leads to everyone's favorite BL Bestie Crash Out curse. You know, where the male BFF gets brainwashed and forced to fight the MC because we can't have nice things. Even the ring husband was like, ugh, kill this fool already, we got sinning to do. Luckily, Grandpa and Sato have eyes that work, and they can see Mars has some sort of enchanted brain rot. So instead of killing him, Sato spits full monologue about why Mars is the undisputed best boy of 2024.
You're an amazing friend. I'd have died on day one without you. I wouldn't be standing here if you hadn't decided to help me. You saved me. But if you truly think you're worthless, then let me show you your worth.
Shut up, that's what should have happened. Sato breaks the curse, and his compassion inspires Mars to live his best life and snatch up the baddie he's been fumbling for years. All is well for a whole minute until episode 10, when shit hits the fan and the Abyss King and his army of nightmare creatures are fully resurrected. Team White Wedding do their best, but they're quickly overwhelmed. Gramps and Mars end up sacrificing themselves so Sato and the waifus can escape. Honestly, Mars faces one barrier-wise death obstacle after another, but this harem show can never quite commit to getting rid of its best character. By the season finale, they're able to escape the surprisingly strong Abyss King and live to fight another day. And when they get back to home base, Mars and Grandpa are miraculously unharmed and ready to fight the good fight in season 2. Kun and Bam. Tower of God, seasons 1 and 2. Tower of God could easily be written off as another edgy death game anime, but what helps elevate it are the character dynamics. The MC Bam is a sweet summer child who looks like he's got no goddamn business being in a show like this, which is exactly why he's doted on by just about every major character in the show. Especially by Kun, the cool-headed cheeky kudere who's Bam's opposite in every way. Considering Kun is definitely the type of person to keep others at arm's length, it's even more surprising how fast he cozied up to Bam. Like they literally just met here. He could just as easily have thought of Bam as a liability, but instead Kun becomes his ride or die and protector by episode 2, treating him like a precious thing, prioritizing his safety, and making him the cornerstone of all of his game day strategies. Not to mention Kun's aggressive levels of skinship around a boy he just met. The body language, the eye contact, even Rack realizes he's doing the most right now. I called Kun a kudere earlier, but he's surprisingly open, bubbly, and energetic around Bam, who just brings out the best in him. Honestly, they're just good for each other, and are always better off for having met. While it's obvious Kun is forever doting on Bam, Bam's actually climbing this tower to find Rachel, the blonde wife who had saved him years before. Kun immediately questions how trustworthy this Rachel is. They actually meet in episode 6, and after a single conversation, Kun can't stand her ass, and he'll lie right to Bam's face to keep them apart.
I know all about self-indulgent women. I'm sorry, Bam. I don't want you anywhere near her. Not if I can help it.
He's known Bam for like a month and he's already this possessive of him. The anime bends over backwards, showing us Kun's only competition is bad news, and Bam gets gravely injured the second Rachel shows up. Even she knows they're terrible for each other, and wishes he'd run away from her and never look back. She's right, of course, because by the season finale, chasing after her jealous ass only gets Bam betrayed and killed. Season 2 continues their journey with a 6-year time skip. Bam actually survived and is hiding in plain sight as Viole now. But Kun still thinks Rachel killed him, so he's kept close to her all this time, secretly using her to progress while plotting to murder her later as revenge. Yandere-kun is a scary thing. The show is completely on Kun's side, of course, and won't hesitate to show us how f***ing evil she is for no reason. Luckily, Sweet Baby Bam is all grown up and OP now. He'd gone on a training arc to protect Kun and the gang from harm. Kun only gets word that he's actually alive in episode 8, and instantly makes new plans to find him. They finally run into each other in episode 11. I've been looking forward to their 6 years in the making reunion, but after his glow up, Kun doesn't even recognize him. Memories of their time flash before his eyes, but Bam has to keep up the charade to protect Kun and the others from harm. But Kun will be caught slipping, and realizes something's up. The plot kicks back in and they're separated again, but knowing Bam's alive, Khun doubles down on his scheming. But he'll sleep easier knowing Bam isn't that lost little boy that needs his protection. Bam, on the other hand, has known for 6 years that Khun's alive and well, but unseen baddies forbade any contact. So this is all really hard on him.
How strong do I need to be to never have to say goodbye again?
So Khun is hellbent on not only saving Bam from this conspiracy he's trapped in, but also claiming him and the grand prize for himself. By episode 21, he finally gets the twinkle back in his deadpan eyes when he's off to save Bae. Because as usual, Khun does the absolute most when it comes to Bam. Here he is spying on Bam in some Party City mask and cheap hair dye, and then streaking later in that same episode. There's actually little to no fan service in this show, and when we do get any, it's Khun with his nuts out during what would have been a normal conversation. Just in case you couldn't tell it was fan service, the show even points it out again in the after credits scene minutes later. Fast forward to the end of the Thorn Challenge, Bam is summoned, and all of Khun's plans have worked out. At first, their actual reunion felt a bit underwhelming for the amount of time the show built up to it, especially when everyone but Khun hugs Bam. Luckily, things pick up and the show jams most of their romantic moments into the final episode. If you can even call two 20-somethings falling asleep in the same bed just romantic.
Okay.
Khun handling Bam's hair so tenderly when he's finally in a safe space and allows someone to cut it after 6 years was so precious. Anime guys refusing to cut their hair in the absence of their boyfriend is not lost on me. Anyway, it's also intensely homoerotic that the show has to shove Bam into a date he doesn't even know he's on to make up for it. Those two scenes will have to hold fans for a while, because who knows when we'll get the season 3 hell training arc. But knowing Khun is still fiending to murder Rachel for hurting Bam is weirdly comforting. Jason Victor. Arcane. Arcane isn't even anime, so understand how hard the ship had to go for me to include it anyway. The Jace Victor slice of the beautiful Arcane pie started back in 2021, where they bonded over their mutual love of dangerous fringe science. They're a yin-yang, sun-moon type pairing, but I like to think they match each other's freak pretty well. In a harsh setting and profession where every man for himself is the rule, it was refreshing to see how thoughtful they could be, how quickly they would rush to the other side, and how fast their bond was formed. Trauma bonding over thwarted suicide attempts will do that, I guess. It's also no surprise when things go south and get kind of toxic. Jace always hated that he, with all of his science, couldn't do anything to help his terminally ill friend. So after barely surviving the Jinx catastrophe, Victor is bleeding out and their dwindling time together is about to get a whole lot shorter. In his desperation, Jace finally sees an opportunity to save his precious partner in a way he couldn't before. But had he been conscious, Victor might have hated the idea of being merged with their latest science project. Their views on science and how it can help hurt the people around him just don't jive. So after Victor 2.0 is hatched?
What am I?
He's having a "what have you done to me" moment, while Jace is just thrilled to have him back, regardless of whether or not he wanted to be back. It takes him being turned into a cyborg to realize this, and they go their separate ways.
Our paths diverged long ago. It was affection that held us together.
Now I know Jace has the worst time of his life trapped in the hex core bussy crying and eating bugs for months. There's something to be said for how much they change when they're not in each other's lives anymore. Because by episode 6, they are very different men in very different stages in their lives. But like a good BL couple in a show where problems are solved with violence, they take turns becoming the villain or savior for the other to slay. Especially when Victor goes to throw hands at Jace through this porcelain doll, making the fight much kinkier looking than I think may have been intended. Victor fully embraces the body-mind altering powers of the Wild Rune, while Jace thinks it's a cancerous blight on the universe. Unfortunately, they're both right, as Zaddy J starts suspending his brand of hammer justice. I thought he was handling the breakup well, but apparently not.
Instant regret after stabbing.
Oh my god, it happened again! Whatever. Victor gets better by becoming God! Because Arcane knows how to give the people what they want. The show actually manages to end with my favorite new trope, naked glowing BL heaven, spun off from the lesser-known anime trope Sekai-kei, where the close relationship between two people drastically affects the events of the story or world. If I had a nickel for every time the main conflict of a show was somehow resolved by two guys being alone in a glowing void outside normal time and space, to chat about their feelings while naked, I'd have 5. Which is a lot considering how f***ing specific a scenario that is. Hikaru and Kagami. Mecha Ude. Like many shonen anime ships, Hikaru and Kagami dance the enemies to tsundere friends mambo. They have their obligatory punch-up in episode 3, and as with all good shonen rivals, the fight brings out some new power and resolve that the MC didn't have before. Even after getting absolutely spanked, Kagami keeps an exhausted Hikaru from getting killed by demanding he be the one to defeat him later. Or what I like to call Vegeta Vengeance. This anime moves fast, so by the next episode, Kagami enrolls in Hikaru's school and immediately gets added to the main cast as the edgy Sasuke to Hikaru's Naruto. But he's not just there for that superpowered mechanical arm alien Hikaru wears. And they've had combative chemistry ever since. Again, the anime moves lightning fast, so minutes later, Kagami whips out a black card and offers to buy him lunch under the pretense of learning about his power. But tsundere waifu is not having it. They made this huge ass scene of quite literally fighting over Hikaru, and she won't even let them talk to each other. Shirayama, the show's resident shipper, is completely on board with this new love triangle. She already stands the hetero ship, so this new BL angle is just icing on her Fujo cake. The show isn't even trying to be subtle about their romantic rivalry, so Fujo kicks it up a notch. She suggests they have a duel over him and they actually agree. Hikaru has to bribe her just to leave them alone so he can chat up Kagami already, who sees all of this as an absolute win. The anime spends an entire episode on this gay for Hikaru joke. The whole show is kind of zesty in a way. The alien mech attached to Hikaru finds a way to pull his pants off at least twice. He even breaks up with him in episode 7. The bond between Man and Mecha Ude is oddly intimate, especially for Alma, who's extra picky about who he'll let bond with him, usually preferring the kindest, most salt-of-the-earth guy he can find. Just to show how much he's rubbed off on Kagami, he even lets Alma use his phone to say goodbye to Hikaru one last time. Episode 3 Kagami could never. Just before the finale, Hikaru is actually killed, but Kagami is the only person to step up, rally the other Mecha Ude users, and try to bring him back to life. He's really the only one who can. The BLish motivation is left unsaid, but local Fujo immediately knows what's up. Because Kagami isn't exactly known for his selflessness, so bringing Hikaru back isn't really to help save the world, but for him personally. The very idea of him being gone with so much unfinished business between them is infuriating, and Kagami refuses to live in a world without him in it. So he gives this huge speech that basically boils down to Not only does he physically repair Hikaru's body, he even deep dives into his mind to coax him back to consciousness. Using his power to this extreme could actually leave him sick and crippled. Kagami does it anyway, because Hikaru is worth it. Waifu makes an appearance in the Mindscape too, as she has very little to do other than copy whatever Kagami is doing, and make this Eternal Sunshine scene a little less gay. Not only does this fully resurrect Hikaru, he's even given a power buff just in the nick of time to fight the final boss and rescue Kagami, who's turned into the damsel in distress for Hikaru to save. Tsukiyo and Taiyo, the Sakura family. This turned out to be one of several chaotic or sex pest ships that didn't quite do representation any favors this year. But hey, I work with what I'm given. Our shonen protagonist Taiyo is no stranger to oddballs and yanderes making his everyday life a spy-themed hell. But for once, he runs into someone whose presence won't get him killed. This show is quick to demonstrate that barely anyone in the cast can give Taiyo friendship, love, or affection in a way any normal human being would consider healthy. So the fact that a character like Tsukiyo even exists is saying something. Taiyo meets him when he goes for his official spy license in episode 11. You can already tell it's going to be a particularly stressful day when another test taker tries to stab him before they've even gotten started. Tsukiyo saves him in a heartbeat before the Sekuhara starts. Him love-bombing Taiyo is completely on brand for this show, and he absolutely falls under the smotherly love umbrella. But his affection and or lust for an already married Taiyo seems pretty genuine.
I'd ask you to kindly not seduce my spouse like that, thank you very much.
Sorry, no can do.
His new blonde admirer is with him all day, making sure he gets through the exam and all of its deadly traps without interfering, but with plenty of hugs and smiles.
You're safe with me.
Taiyo's understandably put off by him at first, even calling him a pervert at one point. But he quickly warms up to Tsukiyo when he's bullied by that same shitbag from earlier. Tsukiyo sacrifices himself so that Taiyo can finish the last leg of the exam. It might have been his only chance to succeed, but Taiyo throws that opportunity away to rescue him. Turns out they weren't in a real danger, because Tsukiyo had a way to pull them back to safety all along.
Taiyo Asano, you have passed.
We find out later Tsukiyo was actually the proctor of the exam assigned to him, and he passed with flying colors for having a heart and moxie. Unlike this asshole.
Surprise, motherfucker!
As romantically as all this plays out, the episode ends on a joke, of course, because God forbid Taiyo be seen actually enjoying his company. Tsukiyo might have been a wear my hug kind of guy most of the time, but this relatively unproblematic character existing at all in a show all about tough and violent love can't be ignored. Veltol and Graham, Mal 2099. I've run my mouth off about BL being linked to unnecessary male nudity many times, so Graham and Veltol being the only naked ones in the opening credits isn't an accident. Also, Velty is yet another long-haired anti-hero who thinks he's the only thing on Earth worth looking at. Apparently, no quiet BL list is complete without the vainest man in existence. Velty and Graham are the embodiment of the enemies to friends trope, but put in the most modern setting available. While playing the roles of dashing hero and cruel demon lord, on the surface they seem like they'd be complete opposites of each other, but they're really not. If they had met in some less extreme circumstance, they'd be the best of friends. And I have to wonder if the anime exists just to point that out. As much as the show tries to portray them as vicious enemies, their first and only on-screen battle to the death was the most cordial duel I'd ever seen. Even when Veltol lay dying, he and Graham couldn't stop exchanging compliments about how well the other fought and giving solemn, drawn-out farewells. They seem sad to part ways despite all the supposedly bad blood between them that we're told about but never shown. There's a 500-year time skip when Veltol is finally resurrected into a world nothing like the one he'd left behind. Meanwhile, a goddess had conveniently blessed, or cursed, Graham with eternal youth for his heroic service. So he's been alive all this time, but in Veltol's absence, he kind of fell off. With most demons hunted to extinction, his OP ass became just another thing for humans to fear and reject. When his and Veltol's paths finally cross again in episode 3, he's just a bitter, lonely shell of himself. But with no reason to fight anymore, Veltol is polite and treats him to dinner and company. While still having differing views on the state of the world, they have the most base, realistic adult conversation I've heard in anime in years.
やはり貴様とは相入れないようだ。そんなの500年前に分かっていたさ。うどん、ごちそうさま。
It's only when Veltol bends the knee, humbly asks for help, and presents him with a new quest for them to go on together that the light in Graham's eyes shine again. Veltol is the only person in the whole world that still thinks of him as a hero, and knows what a find he is. After feeling appreciated and needed for the first time in probably centuries, Graham immediately puts their painful past aside to help Veltol free Machina and the city from the clutches of a mad tech tyrant. And the entire time they're supposed to be racing to save Machina, they bicker like an old married couple because slightly toxic ships were trending that season, to the point where Takahashi just gets fed up with them for being so instantly chummy for sworn enemies.
Oh, girls, you're both pretty. Can I go home now?
She doesn't know anything about their past, so she can see their current dynamic for what it is. Despite their tsundere antics, they hold each other in incredibly high regard. Veltol knows Graham can hold his own against any and everything that comes his way, and Graham has complete faith that he'll be able to beat the tech god Walter without his help, especially since he's the only one who knows about Veltol's second form trump card. With the baddies defeated, it looks like Velty and Graham have gone their separate ways. But in the very next episode, when Velty absconds to Akihabara on a new quest, Graham also just happens to be there. But like all shows trying not to look like Quiet BL, the show keeps them apart until the plot needs him again, leaving Graham with f*** all to do, even after showing that he's never been more than a mile from Veltol this entire time. As the season finale, the goddess who blurst Graham threatens to wreck the city. because of reasons. Velto actually stops mid-fight to neg her about Graham and how he wouldn't be into her and how her simping ruined his life. This only pisses her off, of course. But luckily Graham is there mid-ass whooping to catch him and offer playful cheeky banter.
やあ魔王随分と愉快な姿じゃないか何かのイベントなのかい
助けるならもっと丁寧に止めろ勇者グラム今一度貴様に命ずる世を援護せよ
Velty leans into Graham's savior kink, and they finally stop pretending to hate each other to team up once again. And as with all dude joint slays, Velty couldn't have won without him. And I don't know when they had time to learn this tag team move, but I dig it. After the goddess is defeated, Graham slinks away without Velty ever needing to thank him or give him a good game slap on the ass. They don't even speak again, but you already know Graham will just magically appear whenever Velto needs him. Daisuke and Koji. Grandizer years. Mecha pilots Daisuke and Koji are also members of the Instant Friends Club. Daisuke falling to Earth with no shirt or memories is just a conversation starter for them. And they quickly get close enough to spend all their time together on and off duty. Believe it or not, there is a waifu in their trio. You'd think she would come between them like third wheels tend to do, but she never does. I kept forgetting her name because she's barely in the show after episode 2. Speaking of amnesia, Daisuke will often run off to be alone with his jumbled thoughts, but Koji will always chase after and console him. After the fight in episode 1, Daisuke's PTSD has him running away screaming into the woods. He's understandably conflicted about piloting his superpowered death machine of questionable origin. Koji comes to find him, of course, and offers to take it off his hands, but he only gets his ass shot as a result. Because these things always seem to be alive and real f***ing picky about who they let up inside them. Feel free to read into that any way you like. I've decided not to question why Daisuke just happens to have a blood transfusion apparatus with him at all times. I'm just glad the plot has them speedrun their bromance and jump to the naked and bonding alone in the forest phase by episode 2. Is that even a thing? Anyway, one half-naked chat later, he opens up to Koji about the genocide he committed back on his home planet. Despite all of Koji's encouragement, Daisuke still has his doubts about not losing it again one day. So he and Koji make a pact to end his life if he ever flips out like that again. Now, naysayers could easily interpret all of this as a pure friendship, but one way the show starts to dip his toe in BL waters is when Koji gives Daisuke this bomb ring. I'm not being cute, I mean that literally. You already know how I feel about dudes exchanging custom jewelry. This ring is a symbol of Koji's solemn promise to Daisuke, but we find out later he was framed for that genocide. Daisuke starts to crash out on the perpetrator, and Koji comes dangerously close to having to make good on that awful promise. But things calm down, they win, and Daisuke is lauded as a hero. Which means the death ring's not even necessary anymore. But Daisuke insists on wearing it anyway. Daisuke will turn to Koji for all of his emotional support, and he's become such a safe space that Daisuke feels compelled to keep wearing it.
Koji, 君たちと出会えたからだ。君には戦う意志と自分を信じる強さをもらったんだ。この指輪もらってもいいかな。もう必要ないよ。大輔さんは自分に勝ったんだ。それでもつけていたいんだ。
I mean, that wasn't a confession exactly, but they stopped seeming platonic a while ago. Koji's not even Daisuke's only male admirer. There's also Kasaro, Daisuke's evil twink rival that loves to ruin everybody's day, week, or life for attention. I talk more about him, but his crop top, low-cut nut hugger pants, and hatred for women say more than I ever could. Seriously, who greenlit this uniform? He spends most of his screen time being a zesty nuisance, and he throws one last jealous tantrum in episode 10 before they finally say enough's enough.
そういうお前だから大好きで大嫌いなんだよ
It's not lost on me that he dies a horrible bury your gaze death immediately after confessing to Daisuke. So between the deading ring and this problem child, the show is getting too nakedly gay. So the plot has Daisuke's childhood friend suddenly crash land near them as a distraction. But she's just far enough away that they can share a bike to get there. Naina is 100% being brainwashed and used by the enemy to literally stab Daisuke in the back, which she absolutely does. She comes to her senses pretty quickly, but ends up blowing her own ass right out of the show in the same episode. There's never any real risk of her stealing Daisuke away, but the show has to act like she could. In fact, every time the boys are alone together, without fail, an age-appropriate woman or two will just appear and yeet herself at Daisuke or Koji. The show sets up a love interest only to ruin or kill them off later. Daisuke has to be tricked into marrying the friend-zoned Torona, and even Rubina, Daisuke's already presumed dead fiancé, the one woman you think the show would want to get right, is actually killed for realsies in episode 12. Daisuke is caught crashing out for a third time, and naturally it falls to his emotional support boyfriend to calm him down. This music is killing me. After the baddies get blown up and the day is saved, Daisuke tries to keep calm and carry on, figuring his accidental waifu Torona sticking around is the best option for both of them. But she leaves abruptly, claiming she isn't ready for that. Everyone is kinda surprised by her departure, except for Koji, who's just grinning his ass off as the only competition for Daisuke leaves the planet. Shizusumi and Hiragi. Given Hiragi mix. These two have been quietly existing in the corner while the other more popular couples hog the spotlight. Quite literally. But Hiragi and Shizusumi finally got their time to shine in Given's new movie Hiragi Mix. I knew frighteningly little about them before, but I'm not surprised at all that this bromance began long ago when they were still kids. I love that this movie shows how little it takes to light a lifelong fire in someone. That little sheet of paper kicked off a classic sun and moon ship for the ages. Hiragi and Shizu were inseparable from then on, with Shizu silently but enthusiastically following his son every and anywhere he went. Going to the same schools, picking up the same hobby, joining the same band, also that he could stay by Hiragi's side. Since he's not super chatty, it's nice that so much of the movie is shown from his perspective. Shizusumi makes no secret of his love and borderline obsession with his blonde bestie. He even nursed a deep-seated jealousy for years when he thought Hiragi was in love with Mafuyu's late rockstar boyfriend Yuki, and had begrudgingly decided it was okay to grit his teeth and love Hiragi from afar. Ironically, they both had the same thought, doing anything to stay in each other's lives as much as possible while somehow being oblivious to the other's feelings. Hiragi was also content to hide his affection until very recently. I wasn't sure about the actual depth of his feelings until the movie reminded us how many years and how much effort he puts into Shizu looking at him and only him always. But since the movie is a little over an hour, he and Hiragi are eventually able to just talk about their feelings after the horniest misunderstanding I've seen in a while. Obviously their romance was never one-sided and it was Shizusumi that he loved all along. This revelation comes as a bit of a shock to both of them, but for a man who feels like he's been walking through a desert without a lick of water all this time, Hiragi's confession hits his ravenous ass like a truck. Things go from 0 to 100 real f***ing quick, and for the sake of monetization, let's just say bro was intense. Multiple. It low-key feels like I'm cheating putting any actual yaoi couples on this list, but the Fujodanshi community has been straight up blessed for the past 365 days. The genre broke so much refreshingly weird new ground in 2024, it feels wrong to leave out our heaviest hitters. So 11 goes to the unprecedented number of happy endings we got last year. Technically, Cherry Magic is my favorite for obvious reasons. It's god tier and deserves its own video, but Twilight Out of Focus really stood out for me. It has several situationships, but I like Hisashi and Mao the most. I know there are people who confuse toxic couples with them being more interesting, but there's something to be said for couples who are each other's safe space. What I like most about Mao and Hisashi's relationship is how much more realistically it progresses. It doesn't rely on as many of the toxic, time-consuming tropes I've come to expect from BL. Normally a show would drag things out a bit, making the self-discovery and emotional heavy lifting take up the entire runtime before any, progress is made, to kind of edge viewers for as long as they can get away with. So much of the plot becomes about when will they smash or even kiss, and when they finally do, there's not much story left to tell. Don't get me wrong, I like all of the anime I just referenced for footage, but I love that Twilight Out of Focus dares to be different simply by running on a more accurate timeline. I'm told Mao and Hisashi act a heck of a lot more like actual gay dudes than we're used to seeing. Dudes who wouldn't hesitate for 6 years, 6 months, or even 6 minutes before making a move if they wanted to. Feelings are caught in the very first episode. Hisashi breaks up with his off-screen lover and he and Mao start laying hands on each other in episode 2. And amazingly, Mao's already getting his back beat out by episode 3. Completely unheard of for a weekly show. That's 2007 48-minute OVA speed and I'm here for it. By episode 4, they're in full-blown I'm so happy I could die honeymoon phase. The portion of romance creators hardly ever bother with, especially for gay stories that rely so much on drama, societal stigma, and orgasm denial to fuel their conflict. So finally, just letting some gays be happy and unbothered for 5 minutes is extra refreshing to see. Rei Aonagi. Blue Lock. These two are kind of a lot. Of all the ships on this list, Nagi and Rayos is the one that absolutely didn't need help getting noticed. Their physical affection alone made me think they were dating the minute I saw them. Nagi doesn't just look like Rayos' friend, he looks like his pet. As you can see, Nagi is lavish with gifts, doted on, literally carried around, and spoiled rotten by his rich, equally spoiled friend.
Honestly, you spoil him rotten. You know that, right?
Well, of course I do.
How could I not?
He's my treasure, after all.
Rayo has wandered for nothing his whole life, yet he always finds himself empty and unsatisfied. That is, until he meets Nagi. Then suddenly everything clicks, and in Nagi he sees everything he didn't know he wanted or needed in one silver-haired Kudere package. Nagi was also the kind of guy that's just bored by everything, but dialed up to 11. But thanks to Rayo's friendship and enthusiasm, he finds two things to be passionate about.
And I'll show you life's more interesting than any nap or game. I'm gonna make damn sure you don't get bored.
They quickly become completely inseparable and madly chase their dream of being the best strikers in Japan. I can't stress enough how much they shine when they work together, which is kind of an issue when they enter the Blue Lock program designed to carve out the one best striker in Japan. Rayo was willing to brush away his own success to help Nagi advance. Rayo might love soccer, but he loves Nagi more.
I'll make him the best striker in the world!
You see and hear Rayo's affection for Nagi all the time in the show, but Nagi's affection isn't quite as obvious. I like that the anime will go out of its way to tell us that even he doesn't know why he follows Rayo everywhere. Nagi's love language is submission, to the point where people call him Rayo's puppet, dog, or slave. He'll do whatever Rayo wants, even if he finds it exhausting, because he loves Rayo more than he loves being lazy.
I'm not a slave. I'm Rayo's teammate, got that?
The wildest thing about this is that Nagi doesn't even like soccer, but he grew to love it while trying to make Rayo happy. One additional time short even calls Rayo his wife, and I can't say I disagree. These two are getting the final spot on my list for being the only pair that might love each other a little too much. Not only is Rayo pushy, and refuses to take no for an answer, he's possessive.
All of my life, I could ask for anything, and it would be mine. Including him. At least, that's what I thought. But it turns out that genius is the first thing in my life I can't have.
There's another omake about Nagi being compared to a cactus that predicts their breakup by how much Rayo's smotherly love will cause their relationship to wither, as if he overwatered him. Cute as they are, their relationship comes with a sky-high dose of codependence. They can bring out both the absolute best and worst in one another. They're what I like to call a heaven and hell ship. They actually lose for the first time in episode 11, and that loss reveals all the problems in the relationship that they were ignoring. Nagi sees they have a better shot at reaching their goal if they just team up and learn from other people. For Nagi, their separation is a sad but necessary opportunity for growth.
What?
And the movie version of this story shows us that Rayo knows this without being told, but he can't help but take it personally.
Poor guy. I'm pretty sure you broke his heart. Hold up. Are you a huge jerk or something?
He thinks he's about to lose Nagi forever, and he falls apart in the most melodramatic way possible. There is no heterosexual explanation for this level of crash out over his alive and well friend who owns a cell phone, because Rayo makes losing Nagi his entire personality and the show makes no secret of it.
Oh, right. He's sulking because he got dumped by his pet. How about some payback?
His angry pining goes on for a while, to the point where his new teammates question his sanity. Both his heart and pride were hurt and he wants revenge. When they do finally see each other again in the fan service episode, a heartbroken and sleep-deprived Rayo is as cold and hostile to Nagi as he can manage. Like he needs to punish him for not choosing him, not needing him anymore. Rayo even plans to ruin Isagi's career for stealing his man. Nagi certainly doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve the way Rayo does, but he definitely goes through separation anxiety of his own. And in episode 13 decides to take it out on Rayo's temporary replacement, Isagi, the nanosecond he feels stressed. This is not how you deal with a teammate, let alone a dude you met a week ago. The boys are able to get some of their frustration out during the grudge match, but things get worse before they get better. Afterwards, Rayo feels utterly abandoned, and Nagi has had it up to here with his smothering.
You've changed. You're a hassle now. Yes. Just goodbye.
Their entire narrative is framed like the messiest breakup shown through the lens of soccer, with even more bromance added just for the movie in case there was any doubt in anyone's mind.
Oh, they fucking.
Oh, they fucking!
What Nagi and Ryo have going on is the most nakedly gay part of an already homoerotic setting. 300 aggressively energetic boys in their late teens locked up in a warehouse for months on end with zero access to women. That place should look like a Jackson Pollock under a black light. And oh my god, the smell. Sure, they were able to patch things up by the end of the movie/season, but the rift Isagi drove between them isn't exactly gone. We have now entered the what are we portion of our unsubtle gay romance. Ryo works himself into a lather, fretting over what Nagi thinks of him now, to a point where he's not even sure how to talk to him anymore. But he's able to muscle past his fear of making things worse, and realize this time with Nagi is precious and worth the risk. Ryo's grief is always very loud and obvious, so it's nice when the anime shows us Nagi pines for him too.
It's our turn to play next. Shall we go?
When they finally get to play together again, Ryo's constantly feeling inadequate and worrying that they may never be able to go back to what they were.
At my level, I can't reach you. I'm not good enough to satisfy you anymore. You left me behind.
As usual, the show's not even trying to hide it because this dialogue couldn't have sounded more romantic if it tried.
You're not mine anymore.
In case you forgot, Blue Lock isn't actually about them. So in Season 2, their screen time is minimal. Ryo's character arc is lightning fast, and he levels up his soccer skills in an instant to stay by Nagi's side. Nagi may get better just by being exposed to other great players, but Ryo's progress is definitely the result of his relentless Nagi chasing, and his desire to be chased back. Nagi is still slightly out of reach skill-wise, but by the end of the season, Blue Lock wins the U20 match, meaning they'll be able to continue the program and chase their dreams again tomorrow. It's true Nagi and Ryo may never get back to their familiar original groove, but maybe they can carve out a better, more easygoing one, now that they're a bit older and wiser than before. And that's my list. There were so many ships last year that a bunch of them will probably make my best of 2025 list since their season 2s are fast approaching. So don't worry if there's a pairing you love that I missed. They may be getting their time to shine in the next 3 months of planned videos. Because it's never too early to celebrate all the tender moments and husbandos we've met along the way. Anyway, here's to the new year. I've been Green Tea Gal. Allow me to play you out.